I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you haven't signed the register in the back of the room, we'd appreciate it if you do so. Roll call of the board.
Ms. Dawn? Here. Mr. Hernandez? Mr. Jaramillo?
Here.
Ms. Quintero?
Present.
Mr. Crouch?
Present. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted. Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is board comments. Ms. Stone.
Yes, I would please, if the audience would indulge me, I would like to just have a moment of silence. One of our longtime teachers and advocates and many different titles that she ended up having here at the district because she was with us for so long, Ms. Evita Seasox passed away today. And I just want to acknowledge all the heart that she put into this district and the love she put into this district for so many decades, with a moment of silence for her. Thank you. One other item that I would like to talk about, I had an emergency at my house, and so I wasn't able to attend, but I just wanted to acknowledge how our students were able to participate in doing murals at the City Council office in honor of the veterans and the different people in different services. They had an unveiling and grand opening kind of a thing of the murals on Saturday morning, and I know that they really appreciated that our students were able to participate, and I know that our teachers appreciated the opportunity that City Councilman Richard Fiennes gave our students, this opportunity to have something that's going to be forever there in that building as a memorial, and it was very appropriate that it be for the military. And so I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Fiennes for having done that, and the teachers and the students that were involved. And sometime this week I'm going to get down there to see it. I wish I had it on my planner, but had an emergency, wasn't able to make it. But I just want to acknowledge all the people that were involved in making this possible.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Ms. Quintero.
It was great. Yes, we've spent a lot of time with Councilman Richard Fiennes lately. He had the other one prior to that. But I do also want to thank him for making it possible for our students at Sierra Middle School in 8th grade. They went out door to door knocking on the neighbors to get petition to put speed humps in the neighborhood for their safety, and by golly, they did it. They got their 60%. They did everything with the help of the teacher, Melissa Monk, and Councilman Richard Fiennes found the money to make them happen, so we got to thank him for that.
Yes.
So he made that happen. The kids did some awesome work, along with the teacher. Mr. Townsend from Elvira also was out helping his community. I mean, he was tested, or he was evaluated for clean school, litter-free school, and he qualified, and he received a $500 grant from Tucson Clean and Beautiful for being a litter-free school. So yay! So that's really cool. And we have an event Sunday, August 13th, for people to meet and greet Victor Mercado. So that'll be Sunday from 1:30 to 4:30 to meet with the neighbors in the community. And I'm going to try to make cookies. I will attempt. I may end up buying, but we'll have cookies and punch. Pillsbury, yeah. So come on down. So that's Sunday. Valencia Library, thank you. Valencia Library, 202 West Valencia, from 1:30 to 4:30. I'm done. Thanks.
Mr. Amil.
Just real quick, I had the pleasure of attending the mural that they created over at Councilman Freeman's office, and it's actually a mural done by kids, and representing all the branches of the military. So there was quite a few individuals there, well taken, and it was just a fun day for all of us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great.
I just want to give a general thanks to all of the staff at Sunnyside, the teachers, the administrators, district staff, the custodians, the bus drivers, everyone. This has been a very smooth start for the school year, and I know it takes a tremendous amount of effort. It's like watching the swans out on the lake. They look so peaceful and calm, but underneath they're paddling like mad. And so I just want to thank all of you for doing that.
Ditto.
Mr. Holmes, Superintendent's Report.
President Crouch, members of the Governing Board, members of the audience, start our wonderful Superintendent's Report for the school year here. I'll go to our first slide here. We have actually Earned Media Week, so Mr. McLeod, as you get to know him, has done a wonderful job of actually our media presence in our opening day. We had live shots from KGUN 9, KOLD, Fox 11, Facebook live videos, and a lot of Twitter feeds. And so there's a lot going on, and those that now are following Facebook and Twitter for a lot of their kind of just media and checking in the district, you can see a big presence of that. And I thank Mr. Mercado and his team, a great team of folks that he's assembled to give us a good first weeks of presence in the media, so thank you. There's actually social media just more reached for week one, more than 28,000 viewers and engagement in basically thousands. So in addition, the district was quoted in pieces by the Arizona Daily Star and Tucson Weekly. So you can see some of these particular other media requests or media outlets that actually covered our district. So you see Tucson Weekly, and as I look at Facebook, which is, I guess, a big thing now, right?
Apparently.
Is taking off like wildflower. So here we go. And this was a great opportunity with Challenger on July 31st. The entire Challenger staff toured the San Javier district and met with district council to learn about resources both organizations can offer one another. Challenger staff received a blessing from Vice Chairman Jerry Carlisle and toured the 5 major communities that feed into Challenger: Santa Clara, Los Amigos, Los Niños, Summit View, and Elvira. Teachers and staff got a better sense of the scope of the Challenger community and a deeper understanding of the student experience. And as we talked a lot about this whole idea of funds of knowledge and what the assets our kids bring, that was very appropriate for our new principal, Mrs. Neal. Excuse me, I always want to do that, Mrs. Duddleston, to actually get a chance to take her staff and really start the year off well, recognizing the wonderful communities that we serve. And last on Wednesday, August 23rd, at Desert View High School from 7:30 to 9 a.m. So I have a press release with all the people that we're recognizing. I think we have a poster from last year recognizing, so maybe we'll do a little bit. Now with Victor, we can, 8x10 glossies or something if people are figure something out. Done with signatures. Best wishes. But these are folks who are just continued the outstanding job in our district, and the recognition is always a little something we can do to recognize the wonderful work that these employees do for us, our students, and the district in general. So that concludes our superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. We have no recognitions tonight. The next item on the agenda is call of the audience. Ms. Mary Martinez.
Good evening, board members, President Crouch, Mr. Holmes, and audience members. I just kind of wanted to come up here and talk a little bit about and I put on there as my topic, the power of home visits. I have not done home visits since my first year that I taught in Nogales. And this year with the Coyote Pups, part of the grant that we have is we have to do home visits, and our parents have to allow us into their home before their child can start. So we basically did 20 home visits in 4 days. So me and my assistant, I have an assistant. We went into their homes and, you know, I got to talk to the parents, and, you know, the really awesome thing that just kind of brought back is how wonderful our parents are. Because in almost every single household, their grandma, the grandpa was there. You know, because they're the ones who pick up the kids, or they're the ones who help with the homework, and they wanted to be a part of meeting the teacher and talking to the teacher. And the little kids, I mean, the first one we went to, her name is Abby, and she wouldn't let us leave. She went and she got her backpack, she put her dolls in her backpack, and she wanted to come with us. And it was the cutest and the saddest thing that you can imagine. But it just reminded me again about, you know, the kids and the parents and that relationship, and, you know, just being a kindergarten teacher that first day of school when you they drop off their kid and you're kind of almost a stranger if they don't come eat your teacher night. Well, the really cool thing is on Monday, we're not strangers when they drop off their kid and leave them there. And I had one mom ask me, you know, what if my child starts crying? And I said, that's okay, we're still gonna ask you to leave. You know, and I said, and you'll notice that she'll be okay. You'll cry more than she will. You know, but it's just, I just kind of wanted to before I came to Ocotillo, I didn't realize we had a Coyote Pups program. I didn't realize it started at a different time than everybody else. I didn't realize that there's all of these different programs at Ocotillo, and not that all our schools aren't special, but I really didn't realize how special Ocotillo was, you know, until I stayed there. It was like almost 6 o'clock one day, and they had those little buggies, you know, where they put like 9 kids in the buggies, and there were like 2 different aisles where they were coming, and the cutest thing ever when they came together at the crossroads, and those little kids start waving at each other, and hi friend, and they're building relationships, you know, at tiny little ages, and it makes you cry. And not that I haven't been happy in the past, but I don't think I felt like this since my first year I taught, about the excitement and just setting up my classroom and finding cute little microwaves and the dolls and the kitchen set, and I get to play, and it's okay to play this time, and nobody's gonna catch me playing and say, what are you doing, Miss Martinez, on the floor playing with the microwave? So I invite you guys to come on Monday and just, you know, pop into one of the Coyote Pups classrooms and just check out our cute little kiddos and our teachers that I don't know if, you know, if our district realizes sometimes that they start at a different time and how exciting it is for them and just everything. So thank you.
That's all we have to call to the audience tonight. Next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. Mr. Ramil.
Yes, I'd like to pull item R for further discussion on the unfinished business, which is the extracurricular activities fee for 2017-2018.
So it'd be 3R? Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is general functions, opening of school report.
Good evening, President Crouch, members of the governing board, Superintendent Holmes. I will be joined here with some of my colleagues as we move through this, but we wanted to take this opportunity to do a quick overview of some of the major areas for the opening of school. We're struggling to believe that we've already started school, like we're, we're closing in on 10 days before we know it. But what we want to do is start it off with this opening video, and then we'll just touch through a few quick departments to give you an update and to entertain any questions or thoughts that you have. So we will start with the video.
Just spell my name. I'm very excited to climb prom this year with Sunnyside High School. And this school year, I want to learn more about multiplication. We are ready to learn! I'm excited to get Sunnyside involved in our community. I'm looking forward to learning more division. I'm excited to start my freshman year.
I am looking forward to graduating with the class of 2018.
We're going to prom big this year!
So that was just a quick, energetic way to remember how much all that hard work has paid off to kick it off like that. So really, really excited, really, really proud. I was saying to Mr. Holmes that after about almost 30 years in this district, this was probably one of the smoothest openings that we have. We weren't allowed to say that till this week. So now I can say that in this piece. But really just wanted to take an opportunity to walk through a couple of the areas real quick and give some different departments a chance to just talk a little bit about challenges or projects that are going underway. And so I believe, okay, we're going to start with school safety and Frank Morales.
Thank you. I appreciate this. 2 minutes this time. As Ms. Benton said, this is probably, I've been doing this for a while, but this is probably one of the smoothest beginnings that we've had that I can remember. Parents have been very patient. Obviously, we have, traffic issues, especially the first couple of days of school. People wanted to drop off their children, walk their children to school, which is cool, which we appreciate that. But it causes, bottleneck, the traffic to bottleneck. But parents have been very, very patient with us, and we with them. We've noticed that they parked maybe where they shouldn't have parked. We're trying to kind of overlook that for right now, just until they can get established. I can already see that from last Wednesday to now, how the traffic has already died down before school, with the number of students that are coming to our schools and their parents. They're starting to establish patterns on where they're dropping off their students and walking the students to school. So we can see that, but it's gotten a lot smoother this year than it has in past years. And was that clear?
That's a canine unit.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Mari's out there.
It's just a dog, right?
Yeah, but no, there was a guy out there that they were after too.
Oh.
So it was like, I was afraid for the people that were out there.
I thought you did that for emphasis on the school safety part.
That's been the most.
See how fast you react?
That was scary.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Security in action.
Can we have district safety now?
The presentation just looked at the dogs.
But this has been one of the smoothest we've had. I've had the motorbike police officers. They asked us when school started. They want to be visible. They only want to be visible just for presence only for right now. They're not pursuing any tickets or any warnings. They just want people to know that they're out there. We also have our off-duty officers that are out and about before school and after school, just troubleshooting any issues that we've had that we've had. But right now it's gone very smoothly, and knock on wood, we'll continue to be vigilant and to be out there and to deal with issues as they arise. Are there any questions?
Mr. Holmes?
Just can you comment just specifically on three schools, and just Mission Manor, Liberty, and particularly Sunnyside High School in the front area? Just how those are going. Those seems to be consistent, high-profile areas that we've had some concerns with notwithstanding the egress of our schools.
Right. With Mission Manor, Mr. Huey's kind of developed his own, we set out some certain cones where people don't park in the no parking zones. And we did that at the end of last year, so we kind of brought that into this year. And we noticed that the right there on Santa Rosa, that it's not clogging up, it's not bottling up like it has before. So we noticed that they've handled that situation there. Our concern is always after school and getting kids to the YMCA, so we make sure we have somebody visible or one of the officers is parked there in the park to make sure that kids are getting there safely. Mr. Huey's gone over to talk to the YMCA director and met him personally about some of the teachers escorting the kids over there. So we've done that. The traffic, so we see that the traffic has died down. Putting in that fence in the back has really helped out. Because now kids aren't running into the street as traffic's coming up there in that drop-off area. So that's been a plus. Liberty has been an issue because people kind of park all over and they want to walk their children to school. And we want them to walk their children to school. We believe it's good bonding for our parents and our children and our schools. And so we kind of let them before any enforcement comes, but we've been talking to them, so they kind of know that that's happening. Sunnyside High School, in regards to the students, numerous students crossing every day, both in the morning and the evening, after school. I mean, I'm glad I'm seeing all these students walking, coming to school, but we're probably doing about, I'm going to say this, over 1,000 students that cross right there on Bilby. So we've seen that. Our concern is going to be on Campbell, when people start dropping off on Campbell and they start making some U-turns right there on the bus bay. That hasn't happened yet, but we're kind of expecting it when it comes. And so we'll deal with that as it arises, but it hasn't yet. But right now the flow has been pretty good. We're trying to make the after school, we try to keep the traffic flowing so it doesn't bottleneck right there on Bilby, because that's where we get a lot of traffic and people wanting to pick up. But we try to deter that. The staff from Sunnyside High School has been out there talking to the parents, moving the traffic along, so we appreciate that. And I've been out there also, meeting with them so that way we can continue to give it an even flow. So those are the schools that we've kind of concentrated on. Any other questions?
Ms. Stone?
Yeah, I had to take my grandson to school on the first day of Sunnyside, and I was just glad that that later that day he said he wanted to experience the bus. Yes. But I knew it was the first day, and even on the first day, I didn't see anything major, just a lot of cars, but it still went smoothly. And so I was really, really happy about that. But no, I just a real quick thing here. And at the beginning of the first week, especially, high schools, middle schools and elementary schools are going to be a little chaotic until people get a little bit of an idea. And like I said, from Wednesday to today, things are looking much better.
Right.
By next Monday, I'm sure things are going to be really, really smooth. Because everybody will by then for sure have everything set. But just real quick on as far as the safety is concerned, we've had a few lockdowns already this year, and is there a new way of doing the lockdown, or is there just a new verbiage that we're getting from Victor? I don't know. Is it different, or is it new verbiage?
Well,
Can I address that?
yeah, because Dr. Fabiola and I talked about it earlier today, so.
Is there
We're
two
addressing
different
it, so
times? That way, I'm just
technically-
asking so that when I get this, I know that it's something the same or it's something new.
No, thank you, Ms. Stone, Governing Board members, Superintendent Holmes. We were just talking about that today because there has been some confusion. It was Victor, no. We just talked about it today. We're meeting with TPD and Pima County Sheriffs tomorrow to clarify that, and we'll bring that to the all administrators meeting on Thursday. The issue is how they're calling it. What we don't want to do is create a whole bunch of different terms that people have to remember. We went a long time ago that said you don't do code blue, code red, because then people forget.
Yeah.
And so the two terms are shelter in place or lockdown. Because if you start going, well, soft lockdown, perimeter lockdown, which one is it? It creates a lot of confusion. So what the confusion was, and we came to find out, because one came on the radio as Frank and I were discussing, meeting with them, lockdown. So the way they're calling it from TPD and Sheriff is what was causing the confusion. So we want to clarify with staff and administrators. Lockdown means you lock everything down.
Okay.
Because it means that there is danger either on your campus
Or real close.
very close by.
Yeah,
Somebody's wielding a knife right outside your gate, and you don't know if at that point a person has escaped. They were after a bad guy, a very technical term, that they were headed toward a school. And so at that point, lockdown is appropriate. And lockdown means everything, it's nobody's in, nobody's out, you close, you turn off lights, everything, full-blown lockdown.
Okay.
It may not be necessary at that point, according to police, but when they call lockdown, that's what it means.
Right,
What we
okay.
want them now to differentiate is if they don't mean lockdown, say shelter in place. Instead of perimeter or soft lockdown, that gets too confusing. Shelter in place means you lock the gates and your outside doors, and then life continues.
Classes continue.
Classes continue inside the
Okay,
school.
it's good to
So
know.
you keep going, the danger is not necessarily in your building. Now, a shelter in place, if something changes, can result in a lockdown, which then it would be easier once they're in place. So that's what we're meeting with law enforcement tomorrow, because we realized, ding, on, that was causing the confusion, because we said, why is it all of a sudden this confusion? And we realized it wasn't Victor, but then we knew. He's done a great job, by the way, of helping that. He immediately went to the site. But those are the two terms, so we don't
Okay.
bandy around with a
Yes.
whole bunch of different terms. Shelter in place means,
Okay.
in the old days, what we used to call soft lockdown or perimeter lockdown. And lockdown means exactly that. Turn off your lights. You know, if there's a kid in the hallway and you happen to be the teacher there, you bring that kid in to inside your classroom. But because we don't want to have schools try to figure out which one are we talking about. So I understand what caused that confusion now, because at first they said lockdown, and then they said, oh, no, we better call shelter in place. By that time, the school was like, well,
What?
they're running and trying to figure out what to do. So we'll clarify that with administrators on Thursday, and then put it in principal's handbook, but we wanted to meet with TPD first to say, don't do that.
Yes.
Because one of the issues that we deal with is a lot of times, the law enforcement, whether it be TPD or Community Justice Department, will call the schools themselves and say, lock it down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't get the information, we get it from the schools sometimes. So we want them to be on the same page as us, as to say either shelter in place or lockdown. So that's why we're meeting with them.
Good.
And we don't want to have schools ask the question, well, do you mean perimeter? We don't want to have to have them take the time to figure out what is it do they mean.
Yes.
We'll just use those two terms,
Great.
and then we'll make sure we have something in writing for the principals to look at, so.
Well, thank you for that clarification. It makes a lot more sense. I just didn't know if it was maybe, you know,
We've had a couple of
a TUSD
situations like
term. All right.
No, that's what we, so now we've realized, based on discussions with staff and, the other directors, okay, now we got it.
Makes sense.
One came over the radio just as we were talking about it. And we
Okay.
said, see, that's the problem. That's the problem, so.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, and thank you, Frank, for making sure that it was a smooth, and making sure that all your staff did what they needed to do to make a very smooth transition for this school year. I think other than working a little more on vicious dogs, I think you'll be fine.
That's our next project.
He's across the street, by the way,
Oh.
I think, and he's come after people that are out and about.
That's scary.
Yeah, we need to.
That's very scary, because I thought somebody's going to get bitten out there.
Somebody walked into my car.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Aramil?
Yes, Mr. Crowd. Mr. Morales, have you had any issues with truancy with kids that should be in school that are not in school?
Not right now, but that's something we're going to be talking with the law enforcement, because I've already talked to law enforcement that we're going to be doing some truancy sweeps, probably in the next couple of weeks. To be honest with you, for students that didn't show up, that should have showed up, just to do welfare checks on them.
Now, if we see kids out in the community that are school-age kids, should we call you?
Well, if you call us, a lot of times they're going to say, I go to charter school.
Right.
You know, and so we can't
Yeah.
And we can't verify that, with the school. I mean, we don't work for the charter schools. And they may not be on our rosters, and they'll just say, I work for a charter school. I mean, you can call us, we can check, we can look into it, that's not an issue.
Okay.
You can call.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Valdez is going to join us for the next section, which sometimes can be challenging, which is the transportation update.
Good evening, President Crouch, members of the board, Mr. Holmes. Really quick, I want to say that I think our beginning of school into the transportation, which can be very challenging in making sure there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. You got routes to deal with, you got kids that you have to put on routes, you got the drivers, the buses, all those pieces have to be together. It's like a finely tuned orchestra when you start letting them out of the gate. I want to say that this year we did very well compared to the other districts. We had 66 routes when we started off the year, and when we let the drivers go that morning, we had 62 full-time drivers show up. I'm sorry, 64 full-time drivers showed up, but we were anticipating that, so we had substitutes in place, so all of our routes were covered, and they have been covered. We had a couple people call in sick, but we were able to fill those routes in. So our buses were all running. We have, I don't know if you know, but our lead mechanic, Mr. Tapia, retired over the summer. And we have an interim lead mechanic, Mr. Gonzalez, who's doing a really good job in his leadership, and they're really paying off in identifying that and getting our buses ready for the school year. We have had a couple challenges during the beginning. We were concerned that we weren't getting as many special ed students registered initially as we've seen in the past, but we've worked with the special ed department, and we're getting those students now are coming in more and more, and they're being routed as we get them, so that's being addressed at this point. We did have a couple children that got on different buses and got away from us, but we're addressing those, and we're moving forward from those, and they were all found and safe and back with their parents. But those are challenges, and that's what happens when you have such a large organization. We're transporting as many students as we have. I will state that this year we've had fewer calls in our dispatch center for the first day of school. Normally it's just a madhouse with people calling for bus information, but over the summer we actually sent out over 6,200 letters to students advising them of their bus information. And so we did get a couple calls, what is my Wednesday bus pickup time? And those amount of calls were probably, you can count them on your hands and still have some fingers left over. A lot of them were with the parents of disabled students that were asking for their bus information. But I think overall, our routes were well planned, our buses were ready to go, the drivers were there on time, and those that weren't there, we had already made allowances for them.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Valdez, can you comment a little bit more about kind of subs, how that works? I think one of the concerns that plagues us is that people calling in throughout the year, I mean, we have great attendance in the start, but then the doubling of routes happens because you don't have enough drivers. What are we doing differently this year to address the people that call in routinely?
Well, our emphasis, even though we have almost fully staffed on regular drivers, our emphasis still has to be on bringing in some more full-time drivers to have them there as cover drivers. So when people do call in sick, we have a cover driver there, or we can, we want to go out and really recruit. And I asked Ms. Emsley today about having next time we have a job fair, we really want to look at recruitment of sub-drivers. Because those sub-drivers come in the morning or the afternoons, whichever is convenient for them, and help us out a lot on both of those routes. We have some that are coming in. We have one sub-driver now who wants to be a full-time driver. And then we have a couple people who have other jobs, but they want to come in and be subs for us. But we still need to really look at that. I don't want to get comfortable with our current staffing levels. We want to go out there and seek more people so that we don't have people calling in sick and then we don't have anybody to drive those routes and double up, and then it becomes chaotic, and we don't want to do that.
Ms. Stone?
You know, one of the things that have always helped principals is to hire for subs former teachers from the Sunnyside district, because that works out perfect, and, they know the curriculum, they know what's going on in that school oftentimes, and they seem to be the best substitutes, or the retired teachers that want to retire and say when they cannot work, but still love to have that interaction with the students. And I think maybe talking to some retired transportation bus drivers from the past might be a good thing to do, and see if they want to just do a day here and there, and, they miss all those kids behind them. Kind of a thing.
Yeah, they do.
But that's just a possibility. That's just a possibility. It might be better for them than staying home and doing all that other stuff that they've got to do at the house. But I just want to thank you. Yeah. I just want to thank you. I mean, I think this is the very first year that in 1 week I have not had any phone calls about issues with transportation. I can't remember another year, where this has occurred. And so I really want to thank you. I know you and your staff have worked extremely hard in order to get this to happen, this school year to happen as smoothly as it has. And you've had a few glitches, beginning of school year, transportation, the car issues, the safety, all that's going to be happening the first week. But I think, yes, we can hear you. But I think, for this being the first week of school, this is, like I said, the first time that I've been really pleased. I have not had any phone calls. So thank you and your staff, very much for the hard work that you put into making sure that
I will
happened.
pass that on to staff. Thank you very much.
And I have not received any phone calls either, and that's a first, so.
We need to keep it that way. This is why.
Real quick, before you leave all the way, I did think of something, because we do have dogs that are running around in the neighborhoods.
Bring a bus and transfer it.
I was gonna say, so how do the kids at the bus stops, because I have seen dogs at bus stops with the kids, and they're afraid, and so the parents are there. So, that did happen in my neighborhood. So, what's the phone number that we call besides
Dispatch.
911, or do you want us to call dispatch?
If it's an emergency, and the dog's attacking somebody, 911.
Well, right.
Just 911. If you have a concern about the stop itself and maybe placing the stop, for instance, right now we're working with law enforcement about an issues of a stop around Mission Manor Park. So we're working with them to move the stop around. If you feel that a stop is not safe, 2107, and then we can take the information down. We'll go do a site survey, and if we need to, and if we feel it's the right thing, then we'll go ahead and move the stop.
Yeah, because that's where the dog is, yeah.
Yeah, we're flexible. We work with the community a lot, and we work for whatever's best for the community and the students and the safety.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Our next contestant up, who's also dealing with some challenges as the rains came through, Mr. Valencia will talk about.
Good evening, President Crouch, governing board members. Our biggest, well, it was a good thing that we got hit with that little microburst a week before school started this time. So we were able to find a lot of the roof leaks that came about because of that. And my guys were great. They stayed over. I think one day we left at 7 o'clock and they came in at 5 to make sure we got everything. They came in and worked on Saturdays. So crossing our fingers, we got most of the big ones, and we're still looking and still patching some. The playground equipment, we did remove a lot of the dirt and sand from the schools. Esperanza, Sierra, Liberty, Mission Manor, and Los Niños. They all have their sand cleared up. We filled in what we could with what we needed. And this Saturday, speaking with Mr. Encinas earlier, we're gonna finish Ocotillo and Elvira. We just can't be in there right now because of the heavy equipment with all the kids around. It's just not safe to do that. The overgrown grass, unfortunately, it was part of that downpour, and we were amazed because we would go out there to a school, and then a week and a half later, we were getting calls again. So it was pretty amazing. I mean, the football fields were great. That was the bad part of it. And our staffing, we're good right now. We have one plumber position open and one groundsman. So people are sticking around. They're wanting to do the work, and I think they're seeing the benefits of the smiles on the kids' faces, especially now with the playgrounds.
Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, I'll make one comment. We're at Powell today, and I think it speaks to a little bit of change in what direction you're giving to the department, specifically on how the work gets done. And so one of our folks from our maintenance was there with a roof issue that's been consistent roof issue every year, who actually looked at it this time and made us, and this was commented by the principal in terms of an accolade. It may sound strange for people in the public that may listen that may have had a different expectation, but instead of the traditional repairing of changing the tile, this particular individual said, let me remove the tile, let's go find where the leak has been going on for quite some time and fix the leak so that we're not here again next year. As simple as that sounds, it is a change in I think, both attitude and just the quality of the guys that are working there, and then your leadership with the expectations we have of not just patching things, but actually figuring out what the root cause of the issue is and taking the time to do so. I mean, it was a big deal for our principal that was commented on, so I'm commenting here to share not only kind of where we've been, but how far we've come and trying to remedy issues with a staff that's, shorthanded and working very, very hard and diligent, so thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Ms. Stone?
Yes, as far as the playground equipment is concerned, remind me, was that contractors that we got to come in to put up those?
Yes. We took out the old equipment, recycled all the scrap metal, and then we kept the dirt and sand and spread it around where we needed to, and that saved from the bottom line. So our guys doing the work saved quite a bit of money from what I understand.
That's great. Now, when will the playgrounds be ready for the students? Because the students are already there and they're looking at this beautiful stuff, but they can't get on there yet. When will they be able to get onto the playgrounds?
I'll let Mr. Valdez handle it. He was in charge of the project there.
Okay.
When the cement dries.
Ms. Don, Mr. Crouch, members of the board, Mr. Holmes, as the playground structures are completed, within minutes, I'm usually called by the principals saying, okay, they're gone, what can we do now? They're opened up like an Elvira's. As the gentlemen were clearing their tools back in the truck, I was already on the phone with the contractor, and we got permission that morning for them to start using it. As soon as they're done with the installation, they're open and allowed to be able to use it.
Because, I was at my parents' today and I drove down Liberty to get back home, and I saw that at Liberty, they still had these huge things on the ground.
Correct.
And so I was wondering when, for example.
No, what happened is that was with the forming contractor, the concrete contractors. They had made arrangements with Border International to come out and pick up those forms, and the forms had not been picked up as of this afternoon, and I'm getting on the phone with the contractor to find out what's going on.
Because that's too dangerous, I think, for the kids to use those playgrounds.
I was assured that they would have been gone by yesterday, and when I drove by there this morning, they weren't.
Right.
So I'm on the phone with the contractor, and he's waiting from Border to find out when they can come out and pick them up.
And if not, they just donated them, so we'll pick them up in the morning.
Exactly.
But that hasn't interfered with the students being able to play on the structure. I've already talked to Ms. Gaxiola, the principal there, and I've told her that the students can play there, they just would have to have a monitor there just to monitor the safety of the students, make sure they're not getting on the forms themselves.
Maybe they just decided, let's just wait, because there's no children have been the last.
And if you did, that's you. I'd rather err on the side of caution than to
I can understand her doing that, and I agree with you. I'd rather.
And I'll check it first thing in the morning, and I'll pick it up if it's there, and then they can get it from our yard here, so that way the schoolyard is clean for them to go play on it.
Yes.
One of the things that we've identified over there also is there's a little bit of a lip there from the forms, from the concrete itself. So we're gonna have some, get Mr. Valencia to have some dirt brought over there so we can try to level that out, so it eliminates the lip of the concrete on that as well.
And the shade structures.
And the shade structures, I talked to them today, I talked to the project manager today, and the shade structures are being shipped. And so they should be here by the time Esperanza is finished, which should be sometime end of this week, beginning of next week. And so as soon as they finish Esperanza, then they're going to start installing the shade structures at the schools.
Okay. And I appreciate all the hard work. I know that with everything, there was all kinds of issues and delays because of those rains. You can't be doing anything out there when there's rain and there's all kinds of lightning and things like that. And then it floods, and then you got to take care of that issue first.
Correct.
So I appreciate all the hard work that your men have done in trying to get this all going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, Mr. Portillo's here to fill you in on some of the custodial projects that we're doing and what they did on the first day as well.
Good evening, board members. Mr. President Crouch, Superintendent Holmes, board members. I'm real pleased to announce that on the opening day of school, the sites were clean, floors were and ready for the children and our staff. Excuse me, I'm still a little amped up.
From the dogs?
Yeah. This summer, we were able to get the floors waxed, walls painted, we got the rooms disinfected. With the support of Mr. Encinas, again, tremendous help from him, we were able to get some additional services from transportation, security, the industrial IAs, and some office personnel to help clean with the summer cleaning. They did, in my opinion, they did a phenomenal job. They were fast, tidy, and really efficient. There were some sites that stood out from the rest, and I'd like to point them out tonight. And the reason why they stood out. Liberty Elementary stood out. The reason why, this is the second year, summer, that they did not have a lead custodian. So it was the two evening custodians and a sub working, and they accomplished a great deal. They got that site ready on their own. Esperanza, they had a first year lead. Again, he was new to the summer program, so he was very good. He helped the crew get together and did a remarkable job as well. Apollo, the majority of their site was all first year hires, all subs. Never had any cleaning experience during the summer, but they were able to do a fantastic job at that site with a lot of barriers in their way. So I was really, really proud and impressed with these folks. They just, as every year, they make me very, very proud. I'm proud to say I'm the supervisor of these fine, fine individuals. That's it. Yes, sir.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Portillo, one of the areas, just so we can make sure we comment that we're addressing, there's a big concern that we identify were some of the bathrooms over at Desert View in particular. I know that we're doing a bathroom project as well, so I believe they're next on the list, but that's been a place of huge concern, the locker rooms and those things. I know Mr. Portillo and Mr. Valencia joined me on a walkthrough as we walk through facilities and double check some of those areas. Some of them have been poorly cleaned for years, just being ignored. Poorly cleaned for years and ignored, and they look horrible. And so one of the things that we are looking to address are some of those areas that, quite frankly, have been kind of let go. We're going to be changing them, but I think there are some areas that we've kind of highlighted as some of these hot spots and that was one that was just, quite frankly, disgusting. And so I know Mr. Portillo's out there has pulled the custodians in and kind of reset some of the expectations around how we monitor moving forward, because one of the things that we don't want to have happen is we're investing in all these new restrooms that, within a couple years they're, you got grime and stuff because we're not cleaning them. So that's just kind of another level of vigilance as we're going out before school, taking a little bit more of a just kind of critical eye on some of the areas that we have concerns. But that was one that stood out specifically.
Yes. So we're addressing those, and what I'm planning on doing is getting some additional equipment to make the cleaning process faster, more efficient, and effective.
We just approved also a new vendor, correct, that will give us a broader array of cleaning materials. We went away from Hilliard,
Yes, sir.
and so this new company will give us a little bit more variety. We can't get Fabuloso, so we're stuck with something else. So just for the record, just if you're hoping that was on the list, it's not an approved vendor list. We can work on some things that I can smell, just like home.
As far as the bathroom renovation project, the schools are finished with Craycroft, Little Indian Rocker.
Yes, sir.
And Los Niños is complete. Santa Clara partially, still got some restrooms, but they've got some of the restrooms done there. I think they're starting on Desert View now.
So that'll be helpful.
If I may, sir, this is a little off topic, and I want to say something real quick as a community member and an employee. 21 years, going to 22 years here. A lot of my time has been spent in maintenance. And I would like to say this and give this acknowledgement to these fine individuals. I don't think this place has run better since Mr. Valencia, Mr. Valdez, and Mr. Encinas has taken over. I've seen a change of attitude, I've seen a change of expectation, and it makes my heart swell with pride knowing how good they've come, how far this place has come. So, thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Just real quick, Dean, just on off, did they get to the elementary bathroom at Liberty? There was a bathroom that was really bad. That was fixed? Okay.
That was actually a water leak, and we had
Yes.
to go through the classroom up next to it. We had to cut a hole and get through there.
Okay.
But it is fixed, it's patched up and
Okay,
ready
great.
for the renovation.
Now the kids are there. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, you're going to envision the next slide. We're going to move into. You're bobbing, we've
pop it up.
We're going to come to the teaching and learning side. So we talked a little bit about logistics and operations, and I'm going to switch the order. Curriculum was at the end, but we want to be able to show you some enrollment and some staffing updates. So we'll just do a brief look at curriculum because we had no brand new programs coming in. That was great for this year. But I really, we had mentioned it before, but I want to really give a shout out to the teachers that helped do the pre-service in-servicing. The teacher cadres that met this summer did a lot of work and put a lot of thought. And that was the first time they presented to their staffs. And to really take that risk, and for principals also to give that time up to really acknowledge the work, particularly the elementary ELA was a cadre of about 50, 60 teachers who did that work. And the feedback that we got back from that was really, really powerful from the teachers as well. So we continued with the revisions of calendars of pacing guides this summer from the teachers' work. So that's being rolled out. We've changed our structures of Wednesdays, of District Wednesdays a little bit. For the PD piece at the elementary will be a menu selection so that they really have some choice in the elementaries where we're piloting this, where they can select sort of a series of 4, and we'll work through some PD that way as well. But the curriculum itself rolled out pretty calmly, nicely. We had the opportunity this year for the first time in a long time to purchase new Spanish textbooks for world languages, since they are really happy. So if you're at Desert View or Sunnyside and find them, they're really excited to have that. But to really, now that we're settled in some of our other curricula, to look at some of the areas that we haven't had as much time or money to really look to see how do we improve those. But smooth start with curriculum. August 25th is the in-service day that we bumped from pre-service. So that will be a day where schools will be setting up and providing the professional development for that day for their staff based on the needs of that staff. October 6th is a half in-service, half records day. That will be part of the district, not doing 100% offerings, but doing some of the big curriculum pieces that need to occur there. But nothing really new for curriculum this time, which is nice. So really just doing some tweaking, and really excited for our team's commitment to spend a lot more time in site and walking around and doing some of that piece. Okay. Any questions on curriculum before
I just want to thank you for this is, I think, the first time that we have not added, okay, let's add this time this year, let's add this. And then
forever.
Yes, I can't even remember. But that has really allowed, and I've heard it from lots and lots of teachers, it's allowed them to take what they've already been teaching last year and take a look at how they can continue to improve that same curriculum and not try to figure out, okay, let's add this to that curriculum, or now we got to do this for the little bit of a different addendums to the curriculum that we were always adding, different programs to the curriculum. It hasn't happened, and so now they're able to concentrate on the actual curriculum and how to tweak it to make it better and to be able to teach it better. And I think that's one of the things that, you had a lot of people, 60 people, just ELA alone, and I know you had some for the math too. And so it was great, I think, for them to just be able to know they already taught it once, so they know the curriculum, and now to be able to tweak it and to talk with one another. I think the best part from what I hear from teachers was that collaboration between their own peers and between other schools, and to be able to have that connection now with the other schools and what they're doing, and sharing what has been successful to them. So that sharing has been, I think, was one of the best parts of the summer of helping the teachers get together and do that. So thank you so much for doing that. I know it takes a lot of work. 60 people, just that one training takes a lot of work. Yeah, so I want to thank you and your team for putting all that work and effort into it, because I think it's going to really show with our numbers this year.
Thank you.
That and everything going up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's one of the struggles is we gave up different programs to go to common programs.
Yes.
It's given us the ability to have those conversations across schools at a much deeper level. So really looking to really work the alignment across schools, and also as we move from pre-K through 12 and making sure that we're seamless that way. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Moving on to Deb, are we jumping? We're going to work backwards up now. See, we have a new thing here. All right. So Deb is going to walk us. Dr. Bergman is going to walk us through the vacancies. It's Deb.
Good evening, President Crouch, members of the board, Superintendent Holmes, and members of the audience. I want to bring you up to date where we're at with our staffing and our vacancies. Where is it? Whoever. As you remember, we came to in June, and in June we were still at 56 vacancies. But we also shared with you at that time we were at 56 vacancies because we were still pursuing candidates, our applicants, that we could fill those 56 vacancies. It wasn't until July that we started the task of looking at them and deciding, okay, do we look at long-term? We work with the principals. What is the population like out there, being able to pull in candidates? Well, we're down to 8 vacancies, but one of the caveats I wanted to share with you is that there's a little blurb at the bottom. 40 of those original 56 that we talked about in June are filled with long-term subs. And let me just give you a little breakdown of where those long-term subs are. There are 23 of them in the elementaries. And I believe we shared in June that it was the elementaries that we're struggling with, which I find very odd, being an old elementary teacher, that people are not wanting to go into that section of education. But elementary is the area that we are constantly looking at for candidates. There are 13 long-term substitutes at the middle schools, and there are 4 at the high school.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's great.
And then, those are those 40 long-term subs of those 56, which gave us a remainder of 8. And can you go to the next one? And let me kind of break that down to you. And again, sharing with you.
Next one.
Next one, please. Of where they're at in the school. 3 of them are still elementary, 2 of them are at the middle, 3 of them at the high school, and then we have 1 district opening, and that has to do with a counselor, where we have an individual who's currently in that position right now, holding it until we can find somebody to take that, and that's at a site. Can you do the next one for me? Thank you. And we don't have any electives open. We have 2 content areas open, and we still have the 6 sped. Again, I shared with you in June, 16. We had 16 of those 56 which were sped. And I'm working diligently with Dr. Williams. She's been great. And her and I combing the streets for candidates for sped, but we're down to 6. And today I was, whoa, because I think we found somebody from a virus. I was so excited, who just kind of walked in, and we said, Sped, come in, come talk to me. And again, still at 1 district, and that's the counselor that we replaced with a late note. So are we looking much better? Absolutely, we're looking much better in the sense. I feel when I look at the comparatives of what's happening across the Tucson area, I feel very good about where we're at. And what we've done with those 9 that we don't have long-term substitutes in, for example, at Sunnyside, they've absorbed. And Sunnyside is one, and Dr. Marcos is here this evening, that has sped positions open that we haven't been able to find, but they've absorbed them with this other sped staff right now and combining some classes. But they're still there
being advertised because we do want to find that support for the students at Sunnyside. As well as Ocotillo, we have one that's open, but we're hoping for a student teacher who is going to be going there, who may move into that role. And the same with the autism position at Apollo. He's holding it right now because he is going to be moving into a district position, but he's staying there until we can find somebody to take that position. So we're in a holding pattern with some, but we're looking good, and we're still working very diligently with our partners in Pima Community and U of A South, looking for individuals who want to go into education but don't specifically have a degree in education, but have a BA in a content area, which is good for middle school and high school, but not necessarily our elementaries. So laws are changing tomorrow. August 9th is that big change that's happening, and we're just kind of on hold and holding our own and sticking with the standards that we want. Competent, certified individuals working with our students. Questions?
Any questions from the board?
They had a piece in the news as well, right?
Correct,
Yeah,
yes.
which is well done.
It talked about the changes, the law changes, and where'd it go? It was right here a minute ago. It's quick on his feet, John. Worked with Laura and I and our comments and how we were going. If you read that article, you noticed that we were one of numerous districts who have stuck to the standards and certification that have been set over the years for what qualifies an individual to take on that role in the classroom. And we've just kind of held to them. There was a district who chose to jump to the end. It was very visible in that article. And which surprised me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did notice is that we've maintained a lot of our long-term subs. They're very true to us, but we did lose some of them to that other district. And I don't want to lose any more of our long-term subs. So we're looking at, emergency certification and following the routes that we usually follow to assist them in getting certified.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Thank you again.
Slide adjustment. Stage props here before I introduce Mr.
Apologize.
Buck.
I'm going to slide over here so that I can manage the laptop. We had to go to a plan B for our presentation PC. It decided to reboot on us.
But you can't do two things at once?
So I'm going to speak from here. I apologize, members of the board.
The shadow knows.
I'll give a very broad overview of our enrollment trends as we've seen it up to date. We have just completed day 5 of the school year, and these first 10 to 15 days, as you can imagine, are very chaotic when it comes to both enrollments, students coming in, tracking down students who may not have attended. So we don't want to give a lot of predictability to the first numbers, but we can. What I can show you now and kind of give you a little bit of context is that I think we feel more confident that our projections from the past, based off of our demographic study and the analysis that we've done internally, is starting to seem to be very much aligned to what we're seeing today. So for that context, I just want to show you a little bit remind you about our previous analysis, and allow me to zoom in so you can see. If you can see that.
A little bit, one more time.
It might be difficult.
Plus.
All right. So let's see if that helps. But what the important piece here that I want to highlight here is that this compares the previous 2 school years, differences in ADM after the 40th day, and how each grade level impacted the loss or the decrease in ADM. And what the conclusion came to is that sub-band of K3 contributed over 99% of our losses. So our loss for that year was about 379 ADM for those 2 years. And of that 379, 376 of it were singled at the K3 band. So that's just an important background, a little context so you understand what we're looking at as we look at this year's numbers. Number one, that indicates that the trend is almost entirely due to reduced numbers of incoming kinders. And that started 3-4 years ago, and every year there's a loss of approximately 100 students, and that 100 student loss just is starting to accumulate, and it's accumulating in both a doubly negative way, because kinder students are funded at only 0.5. So in that first year of enrollment in Sunnyside, we're hit by a 0.5 factor. But then the moment they become first graders, that loss of 100 students becomes a loss instead of a loss of 50 ADM, because a loss of 100 ADM. So it's a compounding factor, and that's why what we've seen over the time, it's most concerning. But on the positive side, it's very clear where we need to focus on enrollment and what we need to do these things. So I wanted to just give that background so you can kind of see how, as we're looking at the current school year, to show you what our current elementary schools look like in terms of numbers. And I do apologize, that is so small, it's difficult to see, but what I hope that you can interpret from this is that, let me get rid of that. So you can interpret that is that the yellow bar in each of these, so that's all of our elementary schools, and the yellow bar is our current school enrollment. The bar to the left of that is the red bar, which is last year's enrollment. And as you can see, if you can see each of those schools, there's a general decrease across all of our schools, which is consistent with what we've seen. The exceptions that we do want to highlight are Mission Manor and Elvira. And at this point, those two schools, aside from every other school, those two schools have seen an increase in enrollment. And as it stands today, it's 35 students in the positive for both Elvira and Mission Manor. All other schools do have it ranges from large decreases to almost no decrease, just a flat. But it is consistent across the board for what we've seen in the previous years. And when I say consistent, again, our incoming kinder population is typically 100 students less than what the previous school year. The good news is that our kinder population this year is not quite 100 students less. It's coming in at about 40 to 50 students less right now, and that should probably decrease over the years. So the hopeful indication of that is that we've hit the bottom of the downward trend, and we may begin to either flatten out or hopefully start to increase as years go on. But it is consistent with what we've seen, and it is consistent with what the demographic study predicted. So as I go back to one last comparison I want to make is back to this one here. What that loss in ADM translated to, our last year's ADM was 15,819 roughly, 15,820. I mean, probably 2 years ago. This previous year was 15,545, and that loss translated to about 350 ADM. So what we can expect is a loss of approximate loss of 350 ADM again this year, going from let me just give you generalities again. Let's just say 15,450 is approximately what our ADM it was last year, minus 350. That brings us down to about 15,1, and that is what we're most likely going to end up over the year. Now, I say that with the qualification that we're only day 4, 5 into the school year. I will bring back a more comprehensive and more accurate analysis once we hit our 15th day of school, because by that time we've been able to process all of those unknown students. And Mr. Jaramillo, you asked a pointed question to Mr. Morales. Mm-hmm. What about those students that you see on the streets? What do we do about those? Well, interesting thing is that if we
recruit.
If you look at those, the green bar in this graph, the green bar are the students who are currently registered in Power School. So those are the students who haven't shown up to school. So what Mrs. Gallegos has been doing is reminding our principals to target those students in terms of calling them, making phone calls. I try to remind them that school has started. I know one of our principals did speak to those students, and the mom says, "Oh my gosh, school did start, huh? Let me get them over to school." And so that helps.
Hello.
But it's that type of action that we have to take. And so those are the targeted students, and those are probably many of those students that you're referring to that are still, you see in the community during school hours that probably haven't, for whatever reason, haven't appeared in our schools yet. And so as those numbers continue to decrease, and eventually those two bars, the yellow and the green, become identical, because at that moment in time we've tracked down every student, or we've withdrawn every student who we've been unable to contact, and we reach a point of high confidence in our current numbers. We won't get there till about day 15 of this school year. We drop all of our no-shows after day 10, and at that point in time, those numbers really start to solidify, and we can have higher predictability. But just wanted to kind of give you the broad picture and answer any questions you have. Yes, sir.
Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, I just want to make a statement and comment. We still have huge work to do with our schools and their mindset in relationship to open enrollment.
Thank you.
It's become significantly problematic, just to be quite candid. There's still schools that hope that we'll see more kids after Labor Day. Trend has not followed suit for at least 5 years. The fact that we're starting early, or this hope that they're in Mexico or somehow they're going to come and show up like next Monday. We're certainly not seeing the trends, and we're challenged by a mindset that kids will be coming, and therefore we shouldn't accept other kids. That's a problem for us if you look at our trends, and this means significant changes in our funding. And that means loss of employees, that means loss of staff. Our current staffing model, I just be real brutally candid here, we don't have any schools above 700 at the elementary school when that was a standard years back. Again, 0 schools. We have schools that are staffed, whose office staff is staffed at a 700 some ratio. They're sitting way below the 700, and so there's a big concern that I have that I know I echo some of the sentiments of the governing board in relationship to our lack of changing the perception about what it means to be in a competitive model in a declining enrollment district where we're continuously losing schools in an aging community. Our strategy has to be much more different than it has been in the past, and this idea that somehow the kids will show up later, or that we take for granted our enrollment is certainly something I know Ms. Gallego is working with our schools. I know Dr. Favela has been working on, and I'm not suggesting in any way that, if we have kids who have been suspended, that, that we're going to take them into our schools, and, we want to try to service kids, but we also know we don't want to accept other challenges that may create a more additional burden of resources. But even that does not make up the majority of kids that want to come to us. And so just as we're continuing to work, I asked the governing board for just as you're getting the calls to please let us know, particularly if there's concerns about not accepting students. We're pushing our schools to accept them, because now we're sitting here at the 11th hour with schools trying to call open enrollment kids after they've told them no, and sitting with class lives getting ready to lose a teacher. So that's the brutal facts in relationship to the quantity that we're facing with enrollment. And so it'll continue to be a mantra from us in terms of the new strategy and the mindset around enrollment and how we accept more students. But it is quite a challenge right now in our district with folks not accepting open enrollment students.
Ms. Quintero?
I'm noticing that Ocotillo and Rivera are flatlined. They're just right there. Is it because there a cap on that, or is that just nothing moves? It's always the same. It's always the same.
I can't really speculate into. There's no cap, and some of the other ones that should be relatively flat are Gallego, because we have a very tight control over how many students we can allow into the magnets. And there is some flat line there. But you can see it's just minor adjustments that need to be made. And it will even out very soon. It is unique to Ocotillo and Rivera being very flat. I don't think there's anything, I mean, I think that's just more of an anomaly in terms of their lack of variability, but there's nothing specific causing that.
Okay. Just like, just looks funny.
Yeah.
Just one statement also on the Gallego primary numbers. Part of what you see on that is because of the second grade is where we began the self-contained Sun strand, but that class isn't filled up from day one because those are incoming first graders. So those are students who get tested throughout the year, but we hold that spot in that, we hold that classroom for that self-contained Sun, so it has a path as it moves through Gallego Intermediate. So what you see at the very beginning of the year, particular, if we were looking at grade levels, you'd see that in second. That's, I don't want to say intentional on our part, but it will, that class will fill over the course of time, but they just don't start out full because those are K1s, so those are kids who are being tested at that time.
And there was two schools that, had me a little bit like perplexed. One of them was Gallego, so now I understand completely why, because usually Gallego, parents have to be on a waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw parents on a waiting list, why do we have, this and this thing here? But the other one that has me concerned is Summit View. And that one is probably, of all of them, one of the most drastic changes as far as drop of enrollment.
And I would also add Los Niños has seen a similar trend compared to some of you. I mean, just to highlight the similarities between those.
Mr. Holmes?
No,
Mr. Crouch. Did you say that we do have a contact list of the individuals that tried or attempted to enroll? And are we reaching, did you say we were reaching out to them to see if we can recruit them?
Yes, Mr. Crouch and Mr. Jaramillo, we do have lists, and the schools have individual lists who are trying to make contact now to see if they've enrolled somewhere, or if they're in another place and would like to kind of change over. And we've done that a little bit centrally when there's been some concerns, but now schools are reaching out, given the fact that what they anticipated showing up aren't showing up.
And I will add to that comment, Mr. Mercado has been keeping us apprised of incoming, the website has a very conspicuous area, enroll your students today, and as those come in there, he's following up and having his office follow up on that. So, I mean, all strategies are being taken. One thing that I failed to mention, and just because this does, as you may recall, we commissioned that demographic study last year, and I do just want to highlight it. It's going to be, again, a difficult one for you to see, but it does, what's interesting is that it is playing out to be very much aligned to what we're seeing, and quite clearly you can't see that. But what I will point out is that this number right here, this is the kinder population for this current school year, and its prediction was 1,098. Right now we're at 1,067. Which I think, and which should actually climb up and be closer to that 1,098, which is very close to what that demographic study is showing, and we hope that it does actually reach that way, because the demographic study, as you bear it out all the way across the 10 years, I mean, we do start to get under 15,000 students, and so we have to be aware of that. That's the current mathematical model that predicts what we should see. So we have to try to mitigate it through other means. So,
Mr. Jaramillo?
Now, are we keeping them after kinder, or are they going elsewhere?
I mean,
sorry, what was the question again? Are we keeping it after kinder?
Going elsewhere.
One of the concerns that we're seeing, and we've seen this for 2 years in a row, is that our first grade numbers are consistently lower than our kinder numbers. And so somehow or another, we're not keeping them. In other words, we're not. And so that's a big challenge that we have. Why are our kinders not staying with us? Now, there's multiple variables. I'm not suggesting that we're doing anything wrong, but it is a problem when we see that we're already entering with a low kinder cohort, and if our first grade cohort is low, minimally we should be keeping those that start with us, because then we can mitigate the loss. But what we're seeing is a dip now in first grade, which then has that exponential ADM impact.
Precisely your question, Mr. Jaramillo, the bottom red graph here, that's this bottom one is it's referred to as a cohort delta. So that's the difference between the cohort, so kinder loss, first grade loss, second grade loss. The kinder loss from just 2 years of data from last year is negative 31. So we're losing 31 kinders from 1 year to the next. But at first grade to second, it's actually negative 50. But that's just 2 years, and so we need to add another year so we can kind of make sure that that's not a unique thing to just one grade level, or if it's something more of a trend. But the majority of the losses are in that K3 band, negative 30, negative 50, negative 43, negative 26, and then it starts to be a little bit more variable. But that's what we're losing from for the previous 2 years was a loss of 30 students. This year, it's probably going to be very similar to that. I'm not able to make the direct commitment about what it is yet, but it's going to be similar to probably loss.
Now, are we making any type of contact to the parents and asking them why they're leaving us?
Yeah, so right now, that's one of the things that Mrs. Gallegos keeps drilling into the principals as well, to really, and Summit View is one of them, who was doing a real deep focus particular to the first grades, the graders who hadn't shown up. So that's part of that calling piece that's there. I don't think in the past we've ever done a really clean job of keeping track of the whys. You know, it used to be half-day K. We've been a full-day K district for a long time. So that used to play, but most of the surrounding districts, most of them have full-day K. So I don't know that we've done a good job of really getting to the why that's happening. So that's one of the things we're really encouraging our principals to do as they have conversations. Sometimes, to Mr. Holmes' point, sometimes there's a child care issue or there's something with a kindergartner that they'll do different once they get through that first year of school. But even if that's so, we need to really verify that and know what does that look like, and is there a way for us to message or mitigate that?
And are we accumulating that data so we can, from a district standpoint, or are we just doing it at the schools?
So right now it's happening at the schools because they're actually making either personal contact or phone contact, home visits, something where they're actually trying to get a hold of the parent to find out where is the child? Is the child enrolled? And if they're not enrolled at their home school, why? You know, what is that sort of that exit interview piece? So right now that data is being collected at the site level. But something we definitely need to aggregate to see what are the trends, what does that look like for first grade? For all grades, but first grade in particular.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes the opening of school until next year. Well.
The next item on the agenda is the governing board pro statement in support of the November 2017 override election. This is a statement that the governing board can send to the county to have it put in the election pamphlet that goes out to all electors in the district. I have a statement that I'm proposing that we start with. I'll read it. Sunnyside students compete and even outperform the best students from any district in Arizona. Last year we graduated 910 students, many of them national merit scholars, world-class athletes, industry leaders, and brave men and women in the U.S. Armed Forces. Our district has 6 world-class CTE academies where graduates are prepared for careers in cutting-edge industries such as aerospace and bioscience. Sunnyside has programs to prepare our kids for innovation and high-paying jobs. For this to happen, we have to do more than level the playing field for our kids to have resources to compete. As a community, we must fund our schools to reduce the gap left by limited educational spending so that we do not lead from the bottom. Since becoming superintendent in 2015, Steve Holmes, with the governing board, has demonstrated sound fiscal leadership. The district is positioned for the future. Families are also doing their part. We should do ours by passing this budget override. Fairness in our schools is not about giving every child the exact same education, but giving each child what they need to succeed. The future of our kids, our schools, and our neighborhoods falls squarely on us. I read it slightly differently than the written version. In the last paragraph, I took off the word, I changed exactly the same to just exact same education. based on Ms. Quintero's suggestion. Is there any discussion on the proposal?
Sounds good to me.
The only word that kind of like falls squarely on us, falls on us,
Which one?
on the very last sentence, the
Okay.
future of our kids, our schools, and our neighborhoods falls squarely on us, or the future of our kids, our schools, and our neighborhoods falls on us.
So are you suggesting just
I'm asking.
take the word squarely out?
Squarely, yeah. Squarely seems a little squirrely. I don't know, it just falls on us, seems a little more stronger. The future of our kids, our schools, and our neighborhoods falls on us. Just a
That
thought.
sounds reasonable to me. So take out the word squarely?
So we're down to 198. Okay,
Yep.
so.
The number's 200 words, so
So that's good.
we're now at 198.
So any more prepositions that you wanted to put in, that you took out, you put them back in.
No, we're fine.
I just think this sounds
Yeah.
like falls on us.
It's a little stronger.
Okay, so you want me to make a motion?
If you don't mind.
Okay. I move that we accept the pro statement with the two words revision that we stated at this board meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye, motion passes. And by the way, besides the board statement, individuals can also make statements that will go in the pamphlet. Next item on the agenda is Arizona School Board Association bylaw amendments. These are amendments that we are proposing, that we could propose to ASBA for their bylaw changes. Are there any proposals? Ms. Dung?
I personally, at this point in time, not having heard of any difficulties with the bylaws myself, I don't have any changes to the bylaw to submit. I don't know if anybody else has.
Any other? Mr. Hernandez, do you have anything that you'd want to submit?
Not at this time. Thank you.
So, Mr. Crouch, hearing that, I'd like to go ahead and propose that, this is an information item only, no, this is.
Info action.
I would like to submit that we do not make any recommendations for changes to the Arizona School Board Association bylaws.
Okay, so actually, we don't even need to make a motion at this point, I don't believe.
We're not making any change, right?
I don't think a motion is necessary, right?
Right.
Okay.
Let's just drop it.
Yes, exactly. It's dropped. Thank you, Ms. Dung. Next item on the agenda is suggestions for future agenda items. Are there any suggestions for future agenda items?
I have one. I just saw these papers here, or I would have been filling it out, but I will fill this out. All I have is, I would like a future agenda item to come and report to us what exactly is going to be the results of that funding cut that is going to be, that federal government did as far as our sex education is concerned. And if I could have that, I know that it's going to hit Child and Family Resources really hard, but I would like to see exactly what that means for the Sunnyside Unified School District. Thank you.
Our numbers will go up.
Are there any other suggestions for future agenda items?
Yeah, we'll have more kindergartner kids. Sorry.
Are there any other suggestions for future agenda items?
No, thank you.
Hearing none. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Mr. Jaramillo, you pulled an item off the consent
Yes, I
agenda?
pulled the item off on extracurricular activities fee for 2017 and 2018. Just something to take into consideration is the high school fees. High school fees, $60 per student. And I know that we have a cap on it per family. which is what, $180? $80 per family. Okay, 150. What I'd like to see also, that it's fine and dandy, but it's per sport. Now, if we can have something or take into consideration that we have a multi-sport fee versus just a fee for every sport, and take that into, a multi-sport for the families that have more than, let's say, one or two or more children involved, and take that into consideration and see what that would look like. As far as also for individuals that have to pay the $60 for every sport, maybe we can have a multi-fee a sport fee for them as well. And they can bring that to the board at a later time. Because it does get to be rather expensive if the families do have more than 2 students that are involved.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes, what I'd like to propose, because the fee structure is in place, just for clarification, if and this is something the governing board was really adamant when this was approved, if there are families that cannot pay the fee, they need to meet with their coaches. So the coaches have been instructed to have the students meet with them to work out an alternative plan. And I know that's not what Mr. Jaramillo is asking for, but I want to just clarify that there is in our current handbook the ability for us to waive or figure a way to help pay, or there's other funding sources or kids working for that payment. So they have been creative in that. But what has not been addressed, which I would like to bring back in our next meeting, is a proposal for a family plan, or like a multi-sport family plan, something that actually can address a family that may have 5 siblings, each playing multiple sports at different levels, which right now this really does not address. And so we can come back. My recommendation is that we do move it forward with the caveat that we will come back the next governing board meeting with a family plan that actually addresses the concerns around, how much can a family actually afford.
Mr. Macinas?
Yes, sir. I just have to remind the governing board of when you called for the override, there was an issue addressing high school athletics and high school athletic fees that would it be impacted by the override. So I think that needs to be also be taken into consideration as far as what happens if that's the case.
And Mr. Holmes and governing board members, we can all, that would be a good time to bring it back, because at that time, we're bringing back the extracurricular activity list. Nothing has changed really from April, which was the last time the governing board saw a revision that we were going to bring back the list. It would be a good place to bring back those additional information about family planning. So there is something very brief listed in the paragraph above the fees, that this is just an alert to the parents that this is what we have right now. The fees have not really changed. They haven't increased, but what's not listed here is that family plan. That's a good point.
Ms. Dong?
Oh, gosh, sorry. I was thinking of this and thinking of that at the same time. Oh, I know what it was. I think that's a really good idea, because at this point in time, our students are just starting out with this, and so soon they might be going into a different sport, but right now, so we have a little bit of time to bring it back before it starts to impact negatively the families that have a lot of kids going from one sport to another sport to another sport.
And Mr. Croucher, Ms. Dong, excuse me, also, we want to just put something in place so that, because it impacts tax credit, that when we have the extracurricular activities, we have to have approved lists. So I'll be bringing back the 17-18 list, which is identical to last year. If we have something new that has come through from now until then it will show up in yellow as it has. But we have to have that in place so people can actually donate, give their tax credit money and designate it.
On that note, real quick.
Actually, Ms. Quintero's next.
I just had a question. If this was in place last year, how did it affect the students last year?
I can speak anecdotally because it's hard to capture data of students that, I know who didn't pay, but, why they didn't pay, was it because we didn't collect? So it's hard to capture whether it was a hardship. I can tell you with pretty good assurances that those athletes that had hardships, our coaches dealt with them in an individual basis. It's hard to capture the impact of multi-sport. There were only like, I want to say a handful of students at each of the schools that actually were multi-sport athletes, where the cap actually had a direct impact. It's rare that we see that many, multi-sports past 3. And so so I think what we have in place meets that criteria. We don't have any real data though on the multi-family. So in other words, if I've got 3 kids at the high school playing 3 sports each, how do we capture that? And so I don't believe it's resulted in less participation, but it certainly potentially has created hardships that we deal with internally, but don't have a policy or a standard here that actually can address it, just as a system.
Okay.
Mr. Howell?
To piggyback on Dr. Favela, on that fee, the $60 fee, personally, because it is a tax credit item, that the students not pay the fee till they've made the team. Because if and when they don't make it for whatever reason, it's very difficult to refund the $60 to the parents or to the young man or young lady. So that's just something to think about. And let the coaches know, and let the athletic office know. Don't penalize a kid for not paying until he or she has made the team.
Good point.
Yeah. And also, it has to do a lot with communication. There's money there. You just have to look for it, and you have to communicate, because the principal and the coaches do not want to have the kid go without playing or participating in whatever extracurricular activity may be. The students should not go without if they really, really want to participate. And it's just communication, and the principals and the coaches, and at times some of the staff help out. So I don't want to see that happening. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes? Oh. Any other comments from the board?
No more comments. Ms. Arena has to move it forward.
I move that we approve or adopt the extracurricular activities fee for 2017-2018 as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Hadamia?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crutch?
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Is there any other unfinished business? I don't believe so. Next item on the agenda?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
No. I can't second. Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Hadamia?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crutch?
Aye, motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.